Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. If you're new here, welcome. Today I wanted to share with you the last in my birth story series. This whole year I have told each of my kids' birth stories on the month at least of their birthday, and I saved for last, probably because I'm putting it off a little bit, but I do have 4 miscarriage stories and I wanted to share those with you today. So I thought it'd be appropriate to share with you at the end of my birth story series and in October, because October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and so I thought this would be appropriate. So today, that's what I'm sharing with you. I just hope to be an encouragement to someone today by sharing these stories. So let me start by telling you that I had my first 6 children. I never had one miscarriage. I just had 6 healthy pregnancies, one right after another, and I know that is kind of unusual. I was very thankful to have healthy pregnancies. I was very thankful that it was easy for us to get pregnant. We would just think about maybe having another baby and find out we were already pregnant usually. Infertility, those kind of issues were never an issue for us. After my 6th baby, that was Eli, about 9 months after, I found out that I was expecting again. And after Eli, we were really content. We had a full, busy house, and we weren't quite sure whether we even wanted to have another baby, but we found out we were pregnant. And so immediately we just started getting excited. Oh my goodness, number 7. Wow, everything kind of changes at number 7. Our table was too small suddenly. Our van was gonna be too small. So immediately, you know, you start calculating birthdays, when this baby's coming, and this baby becomes a part of your life really fast. And I guess I never realized how fast before this baby. But it was in October actually that I found out I was pregnant. I found out right about when I was 3.5 weeks along. I usually can figure it out pretty early. And everything just sort of went by normally. I usually start getting sick right at 6 weeks. I didn't call the doctor. I like to wait a little while, you know, but I started spotting on the very day I would turn 6 weeks pregnant. And so the nurse in me knows that I have seen patients come in full on bleeding a lot and see a baby go healthy to full term. And so the nurse in me was saying this could be nothing, but the experienced mom in me was saying, I've never had this before. This is probably not normal. And so I went into the doctor. I called my doctor and she had me come in and we did an ultrasound right away. So I went in for the ultrasound and she did not see anything. So she said, it looks like you are having a miscarriage, and I don't even see what I should be at all for the dates you're giving me. And so I went home, and the girl who did the ultrasound said, come back. My doctor wasn't there that day. And so I remember being very devastated leaving, because it just had never happened to me before. But I knew that it was really unusual for not to have happened to me after having so many babies. So I was just resigned to, okay, bummer, like big bummer, you know, but I was sad. But I went home and I realized definitely I was having a miscarriage, and walked through that. I went back to my doctor, and my doctor told me, you know, it's just normal, it's what happens, and you're getting older. She told me that. I wasn't even 35 yet, I was 34, so that ticked me off a little bit. I'm not old. So that was about the end of that story. Not much to say. She told us she usually prefers if people wait a couple months before they try again. After that miscarriage, before I was maybe ambivalent, oh, we can have another one, maybe not, I'm not sure. After that, I definitely 100%, 1000% wanted another baby. So we waited till December, and in December, or whatever, November, we did wait 2 months, whatever she said. But in December, near the end or halfway through, we found out we were expecting again. I wasn't worried really. We were actually in Kenya with our whole family. We had all 6 kids when we found out we were expecting. And yeah, I didn't even think I give miscarriage a second thought, really. I just thought, okay, what's this new birth date gonna be? And so the last couple weeks of our trip, I wasn't feeling sick yet, and that's normal for me. Then it came time to travel home. As you can imagine, we had 6 kids ages, just turned 1 up to, I think our oldest was 8. So we were traveling overseas with 8 kids. It was a lot of work. It was exhausting. A couple days after we got home, we had a wedding to go to. And at the wedding, I started bleeding again. And my heart sank immediately. I felt a lot of guilt that time. I thought maybe I haven't taken care of myself very well. I think I've missed a lot of prenatal vitamins maybe while traveling. I'm not sure. I'm overexhausted. I'm on jet lag. Here I am at a wedding. This time, and by the way, I was exactly 6 weeks to the day. So I went into my doctor. I'm like, what's going on? 2 in a row. I did not expect 2 in a row. And she said, you know, you're older now. This time I was 35, but just barely. I told her, you know, maybe I haven't taken very good care of myself. I told her all my kind of fears of why maybe I caused it myself. And she said, you know, you are older, so maybe you do need to just be more cautious and take care of yourself. But I really highly doubt it was any of those things that caused it, including your fatigue or traveling, jet lag, all of that. She said, I think you're just catching up with the averages. You know, usually a woman will have a miscarriage for every 2 live births, or 2.5, something like that, the average. And so she said, maybe your body's just catching up with the averages, and don't worry about it a lot. It's very unlikely it would happen a 3rd time. And she said, maybe you should give your body a little more time before you have another baby. So I was really not interested in going through this again. For me, each of these miscarriages was like a really heavy period, but it wasn't a lot of pain. So I was thankful for that. They were both, like I said, 6 weeks to the day. And she also told me that usually when they're right at that time, at 6 weeks exactly, that would be pretty standard for it being bad eggs, which means my age is playing into my eggs being not very healthy, and that means that the baby is not making it because of that. So that's why she kept bringing up age, and that's the point she really introduced that to me. She said, if you went ahead and had a 3rd miscarriage, we could definitely send you to a specialist to do genetic testing and that kind of thing, but it seems sort of silly to do that because you two are obviously quite compatible genetically if you had 6 healthy children before, and we were definitely not interested in that route at all. So I left there kind of confused, pretty sure it wasn't gonna happen again, and ready for a little break. I really was ready to have another baby. I wanted to have another baby for sure. Like, it gets worse with each miscarriage. We waited about 5 months. So I had my miscarriage on December 31st. And it was New Year's Eve wedding that we were at. And so then it was all the way till June, and I found out I was expecting again. And I was certain that it certainly won't happen a 3rd time. And it did. Right at 6 weeks to the day, I had another miscarriage. So this time I was very confused. My doctor had told me I'd be really surprised if you had a 3rd one, but if you do, it could be that your eggs are just bad. And when I had questioned her about that after my 2nd, I was like, does that mean I'll just have miscarriages forever now? She told me, yeah, you might. I'm not sure. And so that was really frustrating and confusing for sure. I remember Googling a lot. Like, I was trying to find somebody else who was telling the story of having a lot of healthy pregnancies and then having a lot of miscarriages in a row. And I found a few that had some blood factor disorders, and that didn't seem to be my problem. My doctor really didn't think I had that. I went to my regular doctor and asked for a thyroid check. That came back normal. I was just trying to get an answer. And I want to be really sensitive to people who are having infertility issues and don't have children or many children, because I know I had 6 children. I had 6 healthy children. I was very, very thankful for that. But there is still, I could empathize with women who were struggling with infertility, because there's that sense of unknown, or what the future holds. You don't know, like, am I ever gonna have another baby? Or am I just, in my case, it was a lot of, there were a couple things that bothered me a lot. One was, I felt like it was over for me, and it wasn't my choice. And that was hard to deal with, because I had not made the choice to be done. In fact, I really wanted another one at this point, and I feel like I didn't have a choice about it. So that alone was frustrating. Secondly, I was frustrated with the fact that I was getting pregnant so easily. The minute we let our guard down a little bit. I was pregnant, and then the babies were dying. So I also felt like I almost felt irresponsible about it, and I was confused about whether we should just be allowing that to keep happening, you know? And I'm just being really honest here. But those were my feelings. That was very confusing to me. And then my doctor really had no answers for me. So I felt a lot for women who were not able to have children, or are struggling in that and had no answers like that. And just that frustration of not knowing if it's ever gonna happen, that is real and it's intense. And it's intense even when you have a lot of kids. If you want another baby, you want another baby. And I'm sure it's so much more so when you haven't been able to have a child yet. So, wow, yeah. So anyway, right after that third miscarriage, which at that point I was kind of in disbelief, but like, this is my life now. Like, I guess I'm done, and we got to figure out if we're going to keep allowing ourselves to get pregnant and then lose a baby just over and over. I mean, like, seriously, in my head, it was becoming, I'm just going to get pregnant and lose a baby every month or two. I mean, that can't happen. I was still young, and that could go on for years and years, you know? Right after that happened, I think I was at the end of that miscarriage. And that one, by the way, even though it was exactly 6 weeks like all the other ones, that one was extremely painful. I got up in the middle of the night and I didn't realize what was happening right away, but I was in a lot of pain in my stomach. It felt like mild labor, and it was confusing to me in the middle of the night, and then I realized I was having a miscarriage. So it was also interesting. I thought that 2 of them really weren't a lot of pain, and 1 was a lot of pain. Like, I was moaning, and I was in a lot of pain in the middle of that night, and yet they were all the same gestation. So that was really interesting to me too. Right after all of that kind of had ended, right at the end of that, like within the next day or two, we had an event to go to, a homeschool event, and I was talking to a friend of mine who I knew had miscarriages, and she has a lot of children. Often I knew she would have a miscarriage and then have a baby, and then have a miscarriage and then have a baby. And her doctor told her that that's really normal, I think after 35 or something like that. And so she would just have, after her miscarriage, the next month she would get pregnant with a healthy pregnancy that would go full term. And that was kind of mind-blowing to me, because my doctor had kept saying, you know, wait. I was really unsure of what to do next, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just not going to think about it for a while, and it's kind of stressful to think about it. I just want this to not be a thing in my life. And all of this had happened from between October and June. So it was a lot within those few months. I went home and just decided to put it out of my mind completely. Just not give it any thought one way or the other, and just really give it to the Lord, kind of just let go. The very next month, I was pregnant. And this time, I just kind of waited for that 6-week mark, because the first 3 times I was in shock that I would have a miscarriage, but this time I waited for it. I just expected it, and I was ready for it. And so I really didn't lean into that pregnancy, so to speak. I was just like waiting for the miscarriage, to be honest with you. And so the 6-week day came, and I was ready for it. And I was pretty sure it was gonna happen, and I was tired of being caught off guard about it. And it did not happen that day. And so the next day came, and it did not happen that day. And the next day came, and by then I was starting to feel really sick. And I felt really, really sick. In fact, I felt sick for a long time. I felt sick for the whole half of that pregnancy, and that was Noelle. A month after that 3rd miscarriage, I got pregnant with Noelle and carried her full term. It was a healthy pregnancy, and everything went great with that. In fact, you can find her birth story and kind of pregnancy story in my playlist called Birth Stories. Okay, so let me fast forward for you. Noelle was 9 months old, and that is my season. I found myself pregnant again when she was 9 months old, and I really wasn't wanting to stop at 7, especially 7. I don't know, I felt like definitely there maybe are 8 babies for us. And the minute I found out I was pregnant, I was hit with anxiety, and I really have never had anxiety at any point in my life, but I would say for about 10 days there, I had incredible anxiety. It is not something you can think away. I would try to just read my Bible and pray, get my mind in the right space, just wake up and to worship music every morning, like try to just get my head around it. And I was just convinced, that I was gonna have a miscarriage, and it was giving me so much anxiety. I like literally felt nervous all the time, just waiting. I just decided I'm gonna call my doctor and just get the blood work and just see if my HCG levels are growing, because I am so certain I am losing this baby. And so I go in, you got to get 2 tests, and they're 2 days apart just to see if your numbers double. And that is torture in itself, because you go for the first test, you wait for the phone call, and it really means nothing because you really have to wait for the next test and that next phone call a couple days later. I could not get peace about anything. It was kind of horrible. When I got the phone call about my second lab results, and they told me that the numbers had not doubled, in fact not even close, and that I would be losing that baby, I actually felt relief. That's the kind of intensity that my anxiety was for that baby. And so remember I told you I had a friend that I talked to who she actually has more kids than I do, and she's a good friend. She had told me about having a successful pregnancy right the month after a miscarriage over and over. I reached out to her, and I wrote her an email, and I asked her, like, how do you go through a pregnancy knowing that you might have a loss? Because I am not doing it successfully. And I'm a basket case. I don't know how to do it. And I just feel like I can't be a good parent if I don't know. I just don't know how to do it. Do you have anything for me? Anything to tell me? And she said a lot of things. She wrote me a nice email, and I remember none of it except one word, and she said, hope. You have to have hope. And that word is like, have you ever read something where it's just like a word just slams you right off of the page? That word just hit me so hard, and I realized that that is what I did not have, not even a little bit. And the opposite of hope for me was fear. I was walking in fear, and I had no hope. And for me, it was like the Lord really spoke to me in that moment very clearly that my hope is not even in carrying a pregnancy or that baby surviving, and I need to have more hope. It was just my hope for me, and my faith is that my hope is in the Lord, and that the Lord knows that He knows my beginning and my end. He's gonna work out anything I walk through for good. And it's gonna be for my good, because he knows what's best for me, and He cares for me, and He has a plan for me. And just walking with that hope that my life is in His hands was what I was not doing. And I felt so much peace after that. It was just like, that was all I needed to hear. All I could do was like read every verse about hope. I just wanted to put my mind on hope and who my hope is in, and that my hope is in the Lord and nothing else. So the next 5 months, I think I went, February, March, April, May, 5 or 6 months, I did not get pregnant. And that was the first time ever probably that we weren't intentionally not getting pregnant and it was okay with me. I just had a lot of peace. I had just decided, okay, Lord, you're in control whatever way anything goes. And I had so much peace, and I knew that the Lord was gonna give me a daughter one day, and I would name her Hope. In August, or maybe in September, something like that, I found out I was pregnant, and I knew it was a girl when I found out I was pregnant. I didn't have to wait for that ultrasound. We did find out, and it was a girl. It did not surprise me at all, and I was like, I know her name, it's gonna be Hope. The whole time, it's gonna be a girl and her name will be Hope. I had so much peace with Hope's pregnancy. Either way it was gonna go, I just had peace. And then later on, I became pregnant with Destiny, not much later on, as we know. And I had so much peace in her pregnancy too. My husband and I, our family, we believe that life starts at conception. And so we believe we have 4 children waiting for us in heaven. And who knows how many others that we just didn't even know about that were ended early maybe, or whatever. I know that does happen a lot. And We believe we have some children to meet one day in heaven, and there is a book that I love to recommend to women that I'm ministering to that maybe have had a miscarriage or have had an abortion, have walked through stillbirth or even early infant loss, and I love to recommend this book to them because it just brings a lot of healing I've seen in other women's lives. And so I'm going to go ahead and link that in the description box below. It's called I'll Hold You in Heaven, and it's a great book. If you've been through any of those things and you are looking for healing, or you know someone that might benefit from that, I encourage you to check it out. It's not an expensive book at all, and it's really short and a quick read. Thank you guys for listening to my story today. I appreciate it. I really want to honor and respect anyone who has gone through miscarriages, stillbirths, anything like that, infertility, things that I can't even imagine walking through. I have so much respect for you, and I hope you felt honored through this story too. I will talk to you soon. Bye.